Hey everyone, this is Noel from Let's Update Language Academy.
And I am Parvati.
Okay, so today we're going to have an in-depth analysis of the speaking modules, as well as we'll be getting to familiarize with all of the modules, and we'll be having live sessions for the rest of the modules in the coming days. But today we're mainly focusing on part 1. Okay, so shall we start?
Yes.
Okay, so the speaking module basically consists of 3 parts. Part 1,
Introductory section or warm-up session.
in part 2,
Cue card.
okay, and part 3.
Follow-up questions.
Okay, basically all of the 3 sections are interlinked, and as I mentioned earlier, we'll be now having an in-depth analysis of part 1. Okay, but before that, let me get you familiarized with the marking criteria, of course. So we do have a marking criteria for the speaking module. The first one is
Fluency and coherence.
let's see.
Coherence.
Okay, so what this basically means is how fluently you're speaking or communicating, and the things that you're fluently communicating is logical. So that is the first criteria. Okay, and the next one is
Grammatical ranges.
and accuracy. First, so it can be called grammatical So this is the second criteria. The things that you're saying fluently should also be grammatically correct. It should also be accurate. So that will be assessed in the second criteria, which is grammatical range and accuracy. Ma'am, which is the third criteria?
Third one is lexical resources.
Yeah, exactly. The third one is
Lexical resources.
okay. So in a single word, if this criteria had to be expressed, it would be vocabulary. That is the best expression for this word. Okay, so you should have ample vocabulary knowledge so that you can avoid repetition while you are speaking. So it is not only applicable for speaking session, it is applicable for all of the parts. That is
The writing session.
exactly. Now we'll be looking at the last marking criteria, which is
Pronunciation.
okay. The last marking criteria is pronunciation. Okay, so this word itself, people get it wrong sometimes. So what is the spelling? Pronoun. We know that this one, noun, is spelled, sorry, the sound of that word is noun. But then when this word comes together, we can only say it as pronunciation. Pronunciation. Yes, pronunciation. This O becomes silent. This O becomes silent. So that is the main thing that people get it wrong. So you have to check for that too. So these are the 4 marking criteria, which are again
The lexical resources.
fluency and coherence.
Grammatical ranges and accuracy.
And then the last one,
Pronunciation.
Okay, so we'll be having an in-depth analysis of all of this. So right now we're moving on to the analysis of part 1. That is the main focus of us right now today. Okay, so yeah, which is the introduction and the warm-up session. That is the same thing. Okay, and it will be basically how much minutes, madam?
It extends to 6 to 7 minutes, and it contains depends, but basically it contains 6 to 7 questions, and yeah, it will determine the our caliber in speaking.
So the thing that you have to notice from the start is that you should not give robotic answers. People do not like that. You should be able to communicate freely, because you are attempting this IELTS exam, especially the speaking, so that your communication skills can be assessed and you can be marked accordingly. So that is an important thing. So you have to check that also, because it is really important and it is essential. So do not give robotic answers, give answers naturally and freely. And then the next one is, even though it is an informal session, try to follow a semi-formal structure. I would not say try to follow a formal structure, because informal structure you would be very restricting yourself. So try not to do that. You should be always following a semi-formal structure. You should not be friendly with the examiner, because the person sitting opposite you is not your friend. So you have to check that too. Okay. And now I'll familiarize you with what all you have to take when you go to give your IELTS speaking exam. So what is the first thing? The most essential thing. Yes. What is it, ma'am?
Yeah, it's your passport.
Passport. You should definitely have your passport with you, because that is your identification. You are not allowed to bring your Aadhaar or any other identification cards. You're supposed to have your passport. So please, guys, those who are intending to write the IELTS exams, if you have not updated or if your passport has expired, please do that also. Please renew it as soon as possible, because that is essential to appear for your IELTS exams, not just speaking module, for all the modules. It is essential. And that is the first thing. What is the second thing that we have to take?
It's your acknowledgement letter that you got as mail when you applied for the IELTS examination.
Yes. When you apply, you'll be getting a mail from IDP, the people who conduct this test. So you should have that acknowledgement sheet, so that the people can stamp on that. They literally just stamp on that on the day of speaking. On the day of speaking, they verify it and take your photo and everything for your IELTS scorecard, that is test report form, TRF. So you should never forget to take your acknowledgement sheet. Only one sheet is required. You need not take 2 or 3, only one sheet is required, and do not forget to take it to your exam. Okay, now people say that you are supposed to take your own stationery, just pen, pencil, eraser, sharpener, and notepad. You can, of course, you can take it, but then they will be providing you with all of these paraphernalia, that is eraser, sharpener, pen, pencil, and notepad. Okay, so and after the speaking session, you will be asked to return it. So you need not take your paraphernalia with you. Okay, so shall we move on to the part 1? Okay. We'll start with one question, some of the general questions, and then we will move on in depth to the
session.
Now, the first set of questions asked to everyone, each and every one of the students. First question is
your full name.
Yes.
As mentioned in the passport.
Okay. Yeah, you'll be asked to mention the full name that you have in your passport. If you are having initials like, for example, M.A, you'll be asked to expand it, because in the passport it will be expanded. So your name should be said in full. So, for example, my name is 𝐀𝐿 but mainly I like to be addressed as Noel JK. But according to my passport, it is 𝐀𝐿. So I have to say that in full, 𝐀𝐿. That is my full name. Okay. And what is the second question, ma'am?
Second question is that how may I address you?
Yeah. How may I address you? In this, you are asked to say a name you will be called with for the entire speaking session. So if I say that you can address me as Noel, or you may address me as Noel, you'll be addressed as Noel throughout the speaking session. Okay, so make sure that you say your first name only. Whichever the name you're comfortable with, that will be fine, but do not say any nickname. Okay, that is not appreciated by the examiners, so do not give any nicknames for the examiner to address you. Okay, and next you'll be asked to show your passport for verification. Okay, so you have to politely open your passport and give it. Here is my passport. You have to politely open it and give it. and then the examiner will return it back. The next question will be,
where do you come from?
exactly. So next question will be, where do you come from? I am basically from Edapally itself, so I'll say that I come from Edapally, and then I'll just give a brief introduction about my hometown. I'm just saying brief introduction because what if the next question is describe your hometown? You'll be trapped there. So the question to be answered briefly, precisely, and concisely. Okay, the examiner must be able to understand it. Okay, that is also an essential thing. Okay, so the first set of questions: may I know your full name? How may I address you? May I see your ID? Then, where do you come from? The rest of the questions will be general questions. It will be definitely based on you because the examiner is getting an idea about you. Okay, so the examiner is getting to know more about you. So make sure that you give the answers accordingly. Okay, now as we mentioned earlier, you will be mostly given 7 to 12 questions. And the time taken will be around 5 to 10 minutes.
10 minutes.
It varies. It varies according to the performance of each and every individual. So make sure that, as I mentioned earlier, do not give robotic answers. Just be confident. The one thing that you must have while speaking is self-confidence. You should have the self-confidence. You should be able to tell to your heart, rather than your heart, you should be able to tell to your mind and to your brain that I will be able to do this. Okay. That is the to-go attitude that we should have as IELTS students. Okay. So make sure that you think with your mind, not with your heart. You will be tensed for sure, but then you have to overcome it. You have to overcome it through many different ways. That, of course, you know how to calm yourself down, so you have to do it. Okay, so yeah, that was the general idea. So I guess now we can move on to some of the introduction questions.
Sure, sir.
Okay, so we will be starting from the first, and of course you guys can clear your doubts also. Yeah, for the speaking session you can clear your doubts. Feel free to type in your comments in the comment box. Okay, now let's start.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
May I know your full name?
My name is Parvati Shijimol.
So how may I address you?
You can address me as my first name is Parvati.
Parvati, where do you come from?
I come from a small town, Chertala, which is located in Alappuzha district.
Okay. Describe something more about your hometown.
Oh, sure. The most interesting part there in my hometown is probably the beaches. There are quite a few number of beaches there in my hometown where I used to go and have a stroll and just swim on the beaches. And apart from this, there is a famous monument at the Basilica, which is located in my hometown, which is quite famous among the travelers.
Okay. Do you like to see the sky?
Of course, I love to see the clear blue sky because by looking at the sky, it makes me reminds me that there is no limit or boundaries, and we can attain or achieve whatever we want in our life.
Okay, now what about stars?
Of course, definitely, I love stars. I read most about the constellations during my childhood, and I always love to find these constellations in the sky, especially my favorite constellation, Orion.
Okay, good. Which is a good place to see the stars?
Well, there are quite places to watch sky, and I think the best place to see stars is mountains because at that place we can see the stars appears quite closer, and we can see it without any hindrance like the buildings or trees. So I think that's the best place to see stars.
Okay. How often do you look at the sky?
Well, I don't often look at the sky during the daytime because it is sunny, but I love to see stars on the night time because there are lots of stars at that time.
So, do you prefer skies in the morning or the skies in the night?
Yes, I already mentioned it that I like to see person like looking into the sky during the daytime, because it is quite comfortable and there are lots of stars during that time.
Okay. Can you see the moon and the stars from the place where you live in?
So definitely, I can see clear view of stars and moon in that place I live, because I live in the top rooftop. So it's a clear view, and we can see the beautiful view of moon and stars.
So, would you want to live, or would you like to live on other planets?
Oh, yes, definitely. I want to live on other planets, because I'm always curious about to know about the what's the life, how it would be at the other planets. So I always wanted to live on other planets, and I think it's not possible even right now. But hopefully, the future, maybe we can also convert that too.
Okay, so that was the end of part one. Okay, now guys, actually there were some corrections. First thing I want to say to you guys is to avoid humming. That is like that. Okay, so you can avoid it majority of the times. It is okay if it comes once or twice, but I don't think that it is okay if it keeps on repeating. Okay, so that is an important thing to be noted. And then, as I mentioned earlier, this is to test your ability to communicate. So the examiner, if impressed, might ask some questions, that is 2 or 3 questions. He or she can also ask a lot of questions. Okay, so there is a common myth that if an examiner asks just 1 or 2 questions, the examiner might be impressed. That is not the case. That is just a misconception. That is just a myth. The fact is that he or she, they can go on and ask as many questions as they want. There is no set time limit for asking the part one question. Okay, so I seriously hope you guys have understood some things from this video, from this live session. Okay, now you can ask your doubts in the comment box. Okay, do we have a question? Okay, we do have a question. How many sentences can be used to describe our hometown? Okay, so basically we can take about 1 to 2 or 3 sentences to describe, but if you go more than that, not suggested. You can of course go more beyond that, but we won't suggest going beyond 2 or 3 sentences. I hope I've cleared that out. Can we use informal words while speaking? Of course, I mentioned earlier that of course you can follow an informal structure, but make sure that you keep it, kind of simple. Okay, you can use informal words, but majority of the times just keep it in a semi-formal manner. That's it. Semi-formal means, of course, mixing formal and informal together. There is no restriction to that. You can definitely use it. Okay, another question, can we use idioms while speaking? Of course.
Definitely.
Definitely we can use idioms, but
Warm-up session. Idioms, it is basically for cue card session.
okay. Now, while using idioms, make sure that you are using it daily. Because if you don't, it will go wrong. Yeah. For example, I'll say an example. There is an idiom called piece of cake, another idiom, cup of tea. I personally know a person who said it as cup of cake.
Oh.
Okay, so that kind of errors in idioms can be a con to us. to us the people who take the speaking exam. So if you're using idioms, be sure about it, be familiarized with it beforehand, make sure that you use it in your daily speaking or daily communication. And for you to be successful, IELTS must be practiced. Speaking must be practiced continuously. You have to communicate in English. That is the best way to improve your language, because we will be self-conscious about what all mistakes we're making, and we will try ourselves to correct it. So communicate in English as much as you can. It will definitely be worthy. It will definitely be worth your while. Okay, so yeah.
Another question is,
okay.
Is it okay if I don't expand my initials when they ask my full name?
Okay, as I mentioned earlier, you have to say it according to what name is
in your
passport. So if your name in the passport just has initials, it is okay. But if the name in your passport is expanded, please say it accordingly. Yeah.
Another question is it important to maintain eye contact while speaking?
Actually, it is not mandatory, but yeah, I would suggest, we both would suggest to have an eye contact, because that suggests that you are confident. Suggests that you're confident enough in what you're speaking. That should be there. Yes. Do we have more questions? Guys, feel free to ask about it.
The most common error students go while answering where you come from is that I am coming from. I heard a lot of times that students are talking about that I am coming from that place, which means that you are coming.
Okay. So I'm switching to Malayalam for just a second here. ഞാൻ വന്നുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുകയാണ് എന്ന് പറയുന്നതാണ് I am coming from എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. You should not say that. നമ്മൾ എവിടെ നിന്നാണ്? Which place are you from? Where do you come from? അതാണ് ചോദിക്കുന്നത്. So you have to say,
yeah, I come from, or I live in what
or
place.
you can also say I hail from. Okay, that would be a new word for you. Many people might know it, but there are some students who do not know it. So while doing your speaking sessions, yeah, you can make use of this word. I hail from. H-A-I-L. I hail from. Okay. So I guess we've come to the end of our speaking analysis of part 1. Okay. Okay, we'll see you in another part. It might not be us, it might be other trainers. So stay tuned with us. Thanks from our side, from IELTS department of Let's Update
Language Academy.
Thank you.